The last batch of the 2020 to 2023 revamp Looney Tunes cartoons has dropped, and character designer and layout artist Robert Griggs is here to chat all things Looney. So, of course, you realize this means podcast.
Are you ready, eager young space cadets?
Meep, meep.
I saw a potent pen.
That is the limit!
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Graves, and if you're tiny or toony or just a little bit loony, then you've come to the right place. Here is where we talk about all things animation, specifically Warner Brothers animation, and I am thrilled to introduce to you layout artist and character designer for Looney Tunes cartoons, among other projects, Robert Griggs. Robert, how are you doing? And welcome to the show.
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It is an honor to have you here. Obviously, the last batch has dropped, so you are able to talk about your work on the show without stepping on anything and going into things we haven't seen, because it's all out there now. And unfortunately, this is the end. There's nothing else that will be, out there like this until the revealed movie Bubble Brain, which stars Daffy and Porky, and that is going to be a monumentous podcast and event that I cannot wait to go see in theaters. And I will track that down wherever that is playing. I will go see that in a theater.
I know. I'm hoping it's going to show up in a theater too that I can bring everybody to.
Absolutely. But first of all, what was it like to have this storied career of yours and it led to Looney Tunes? Because I know you have more of a Disney background. So how did the Shield get you? How did the Warner Brothers Shield bring you over from the Big Mouse?
Actually, it was through my mentor, Bob McKnight. They were looking for, because they've had a bunch of artists come in and out and just hit a couple shorts and then move on to other projects. And they were desperately looking for anybody that could draw these characters the way they were hoping. And he threw my name out there going, have you talked to him yet? It was like, you should be talking to him. Why haven't you called him? And he kept calling me about it and saying, you should get a call this week. And he's like, did they call you? No. He's like, so, it just took a little while and then they finally picked up the phone.
Well, I'm glad they snatched you because your work is incredible and I loved watching every frame of this show. It is the exact throwback series that I had always wanted to happen and we never got. Like it just kept it was like it was right out of grasp for so many years, and now Pete Brownguard came in and was like, no, we're doing it. Like this is the time and we're actually going to make this happen. I'm enamored by your work. What was it like to bring Daffy and Porky into this forefront of modern animation using new techniques that they obviously didn't have in the 40s, but to have it feel that retro feel?
It was a lot of fun and it was very liberating. From my history of working with Disney, they're pretty much got a vice on you of what they want to see and what they want to deal with. So when they brought me over and they just started giving me samples, it was like, how far can I push this? And they were like, go to town. It's like, just do what you want. I was like, really? So it was night and day difference from just everyday work. So it was so much fun. It was like, they gave you model packs, but I'm like, I don't really draw that model. I can try and mimic it. But they were like, don't worry about that model at all. That's the base model. The way you want everything to look like the vintage stuff. So there was a McKimpson and there's a Jones and there's a Freeling. So they wanted all of the shorts to have a stamp on it, which was so much fun. It was like, then you just draw and go, and whatever feels right, and you just let it out on the paper.
Wow.
And there's nothing like that.
No, I mean, like, it is so refreshing to hear that, but also it seems like you guys were not you were unleashed. You weren't like held back by anything, and that's so cool to hear, but also it comes across in the work as well. There are many times that I was like, oh wow, they went there. And that's you guys just like, doing your thing and not being, I guess, chained to any one way or one specific like model sheet or anything like that. You guys were really able to expand it.
And it's fun to watch because you can see, well, I can see my shorts and you can see Dan Haskett and you can see Bob McKnight and Jim Soper. And so it's really cool to put them all in there and then go, I don't even have to look at the credits yet. I'm like, there's Jim, there's Dan. Okay. It's like, and it was fun for a while because, I went over to Bob's place to have lunch because he was just so excited that we was finally on a project together. It was like, wow, okay, this is interesting.
Nice.
This has been a long time. We've known each other for 30 years, and Dan.
Oh, wow.
And he had printouts of my layouts. And I was just like, why do you have a stack of my layouts? He's like, reference? I was like, but you printed them actual size. He's like, yeah. It was just weird because he wound up using some of my layouts as his basis for characters for like Tweety, and he wanted to see how I was drawing Sylvester. So we're all riffing off of each other at one point because I was looking at his and Dan's, just trying to find a vein that I don't stray too far off either the model sheet or what has been produced already.
Yeah.
So it's like, how far did you guys go with it? Now I know how far I want to go with it. So that was, and just seeing the boards, and they went loose on the boards. They went to town with all sorts of ideas, and it was so fun watching it. And even panels were drawing, and we're laughing constantly while we're doing it. But also in the back of the head is, they're going to have to flag this. There's no way they're going to let this one fly. It's like, I'm going to push it worse, and now I'm really going to get it flagged. And then, they all dropped, and we're watching them, and I'm like, that made it in. They didn't say anything about that. They just left it alone. Okay. It's odd because, normally you see S&P come after everything. And I guess there were a handful of shorts that had issues that got brought up, but I'm not familiar with all of the ones that were. Only one in particular I know of, but it was kind of a question mark. Why did that get brought up? But
Okay.
For the most part, it was fun to see all the board guys go to town and get loose. It's like, and just throw it on the wall, see what sticks.
That's amazing.
And yeah, they did so many, but they could have done so many more.
Right.
It's like, you look at all the gags that they've done. You could have taken some of these shorts and split them into 3 shorts. They were just so jam packed with stuff. It was like, and we were wondering whether or not they were going to want another run produced, but we're in streaming era, so they kind of get their little numbers, and still, it's like, you never know, maybe they'll want to come back to it. But with Discovery, they seem to be acting a little bit different, so it might come around again. Who knows?
I'm hopeful.
Now I'm just excited for the movie.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, we have the movie to look forward to, thankfully. And I'm hopeful that it does come back around after the success of the movie, and I'll be promoting that movie hard whenever it has a release date and everything. One more question before we get into specific shorts that you worked on. What is your favorite character out of the Looney Tunes to draw and to bring to life in this new way?
So many of them are just, this was the first time drawing pretty much all of them. So it was an experiment every time I got a different short. Bugs is always my favorite. Daffy's kind of right up there, but Bugs always kind of edges him out. But there are other characters, like never drawn Sylvester before. I love drawing Sylvester.
Oh, wow.
He was a blast. I was like, and Porky probably low on my totem pole, only because his proportions are so similar to Mickey, who I've drawn for 30 years, that it felt in the same vein. But if I could draw him beat up and mangled, then it was a blast. It's like standing poses, just kind of, hovering around and getting them on models, like, but yeah, if you can give him a black eye and chipped teeth, and that was a lot of fun. but it's hard to narrow it down. Gossamer's so much fun. I love drawing hair. So
I'm so glad you brought up Gossamer because that's the first one I wanted to talk about. Pain Rent was this short that came out of nowhere for me because already we had a Gossamer short with Big League Beast, and I thought that was phenomenal. Seeing Bugs and Gossamer go at it and implementing baseball, I thought that was really fun and reminiscent of the classic baseball Bugs. But what you guys did on this Pain Rent was Gossamer leaves the castle and goes into Bugs's home.
Gossamer. I need you to run an errand, Gossamer. Go out and find me a small test subject. And please try to bring it back in one piece this time.
And is like an invader in a way. And it's played as such. And there's some scary moments, but the proportions of Gossamer inside Bugs's home, I thought were perfect. And like he's banging his head on the tops of doorways and thresholds. What was it to, I guess, bring a character outside of his comfort zone? Because we've never seen Gossamer outside of the castle unless he was like miniaturized in a little boat in water everywhere.
then I didn't think about that at all. Sometimes the pace of what we had to do and the deadlines, it was just like we're just going through it. So it's like you get a chance to view it, but changing locations never really crosses my mind because to me they're all free to be wherever they want.
Okay.
And as long as the story works. So it was interesting as, you just got to watch the layouts and make sure that they hit. So the BG guys, we don't always cross paths at the same time. So sometimes we're just borking off of boards and the BG guys are going to town at the same time as we are. So they're looking, sometimes they see our layouts first and then they have to rearrange because we've set it up in a specific way and had to alter it and shift the angles. And then they have to do some tweaking. But yeah, it was like everything was pretty well mapped out in the board phase. They seemed to have a nice rein on what they wanted to see and fleshing it out. Once in a while, we just kind of readjust and, we'll draw extra full body poses where they're cut off so that they can shift later on. And I see that in a lot of the shorts that sometimes they've spread characters out to clear things or adjusted it or cropped in or out. So working digitally that way does open up reframing possibilities.
Okay.
As opposed to paper you can, but I think it's a little easier in the digital phase when everybody's on different layers as opposed to the pencils.
And Gossamer,
yeah,
like he gets beat up in that, and so does Bugs. Bugs gets strangled a little bit. You were talking about Porky getting mangled, and like this show has no holds barred when it comes to characters getting beat up and punched and scratched and hair being pulled out every which way. Can you talk a bit of
people chopped up?
yeah. Can you talk about that aspect of Gossamer and how fun it was to just kind of dishevel him, if you will, through the actions of Bugs?
Yeah, any of the characters disheveled is just so much fun because there is no model for that. It's kind of like how do you break them in a pleasing way, if there is such a thing. With hair, it's just fun to draw burnt and crispy, and I actually really like effects animation. So when he gets electrocuted, I was just giving them extra poses of here. You could do all these kind of weird, crazy shapes with him in the electricity form. And I was like, and then they all showed up. They only asked for like one. And it's like, but I gave them a whole bunch of them. It's like, and you see them all pop up. And it's like, so it was fun that way because on some scenes you almost feel like you're animating because you're flipping through it, trying to see where to hit.
Yeah.
That we had stuff where, people's arms were broken, the bone sticking out. And sometimes that was a little too much. So they, you take the bone away.
I'm thinking of Mummy
yeah,
Dummy right now, like just the Bugs being mangled and broken apart.
It shows up in some of them, and in other ones they take it out. Sylvester had some bones sticking out in shorts, and we removed those. I was like, I thought it was funny.
They are cartoon characters. I mean, they will come back together. They're malleable. But yeah, I mean, I loved how you guys broke them and they are immensely broken, but in the best way possible. It is pleasing, but it is also horrifying, and you feel the
Hmm.
dread the characters are in, which is something that Looney Tunes has never really had. They've never really had dread, and I think you guys did a really good job of implementing that into the cartoons.
Pardon the delay, ladies and gents. Your patience is about to be rewarded. 'Cause now, the real show begins.
Me and my toys for revenge.
My volunteer has been tied to the spinning wheel of death, rendering him completely helpless.
Jumpin' Jiminy!
Yeah, adding that little snippet is fun. It's like doing something you haven't seen before. It's like you always had a little bit of shock, but not anything kind of further than that. They kind of towed the line
Yeah.
about how far they wanted to go, but it was fun to push the horror element a little bit more in a couple of the episodes, especially the Gossamer one. It just felt like Frankenstein going through the forest and close-ups of evil hands. And so those were ones that was kind of like, how many lines and wrinkles do you mind if I put in here? It's like, you mind? I'm going to put a lot of detail on here. It's like close-up, and they're like, good, let's go. It's like, I love close-up shots. I love, when they're holding cards in front of the frame and it's a big old hand.
Yeah.
It's like, and you got all these extra folds and wrinkles, and it's like that stuff just makes my day,
That's fantastic.
as opposed to tiny little characters.
So speaking of horror elements, you also did the work on the opening to the Hallow Scream Halloween special, and we saw the silhouettes of Monster Tweety, of Jekyll from Jekyll and Hyde, and
Witch Hazel.
Witch Hazel was there, and she had a standout short in that little compacted list of cartoons. But the opening titles just got me excited because those characters we're not going to see any like full detailed cartoons with, like King Tweety or of like Monster Tweety. And I was so bummed about that, but you really captured their essence in the silhouettes. Did you just pull from the model sheets that were already at Warner Brothers, or did you create them from the ground up?
Well, actually, I had to grab like film grabs because I couldn't really find any model sheets.
Oh, wow.
There was one of those. I was already working on. I believe I was working on Tiny Toons already. Looney Tunes was over, and they called up saying we're working on a bumpers. It was like, do you have time? So I had to just fish together whatever I could find. So I grabbed the shorts off of where I could at home and stuff, and just grabbed frames and tried to get basics of what shapes they are. And they had, the rough boards laid out, and I had to figure out how to get the proportions in there and also make the silhouettes clear, which is really difficult on a couple of them. So Witch Hazel got changed a little bit because it's hard when you all have head, all body, and you throw hands out.
Right.
You don't know, you're trying your best to not overlap things that'll make it muddy. Yeah, I was kind of almost in the dark on that one because I didn't know what they were going to be used for. I thought it was going to be 3 individuals tying up for little mini bumpers coming soon. Here it comes. I didn't realize it was for the opening.
Wow.
So it's one of those things that is, you just get the drawings and here you go. But it's like, it's not really pertinent for me to know how they're going to use it as long as it fits right. But that was a lot of fun because they, I threw him an idea of like dropping a potion into the Jekyll character into the cauldron and having it bubble up and explode. And I pretty much animated an explosion on it. But I didn't realize that's why I thought it was 3 separate ones. So it was too much time for that. But that was fun because, again, I didn't realize how much I liked effects animation.
I loved how it turned out. And yeah, like it gets you ready for some Halloween scares in this really short, compact, I think it's 2 cartoons in that. But they were just so great and so well done. Obviously the Witch Hazel one has its own unique take on the character, and she has a majority of the things to do alongside her spider companion, who is like, her adversary. And I just thought it was so wonderful to see such reverence and such respect put on those characters that we didn't get to see, but that were still a part of the Looney lore that you were diving into and picking and pulling from.
It was interesting though, because when I didn't realize it was the Jekyll character,
Mm.
the boards were kind of loose and rough. So when I first saw it, I actually thought Count Blood Count.
You must be the
Oh,
head waiter.
Count, blood count, at your service, sir.
Yeah.
And that's who I was roughing out until I looked at it closer and went, wait, there's teeth? Oh, wait. It was like, and then I realized I had to switch gears. And I was almost hoping that that special was going to have all of those in
yeah.
it because I didn't know what everybody else was working on at the time. So I'm
Mm.
like, are we going to see Monster Tweety again?
Right?
I was like, that would be awesome. I was like, so I was a little disappointed that they didn't get to that, but because I think there were talks at one point of doing another batch, but then moving into another decade of style.
Oh, I would have loved
So
to
this
see
was,
that.
late 30s, early 40s, and it would move into like 40s to 50s and just do a bunch of shorts in those, and then you could drag a whole bunch of other characters out. So there were plans, or at least thoughts, but those guys were Pete and Alex working on it for how many years? You get burnt out on the same thing, trying to come up with all these ideas.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. But, having Chuck Jones era characters would be so great to see in all of their glory. But you do touch on some. So obviously we had Wile E. Coyote in these, and we had Mark Anthony and
So
Pussyfoot, which you did
Ralph,
and
right?
Ralph Wolf, yes, and Sam Sheepdog. But Mark Anthony and Pussyfoot are two pairings that I love because they are so adorable together, and they have the craziest misadventures.
Oh, rest assured, madam. Your pets will be quite at home here while you're away. We have appropriate accommodations for dogs and cats. All right, then. Off to your designated areas.
They had already appeared in 3 shorts before you came along, and now, like, this work in the latest batch, this is like the quintessential modern day Mark Anthony Pussyfoot short that you want. It's the same dynamic. You already know it in your head when they're introduced into this pet hotel and they get separated, and you just know that they're going to come together and he's going to have to put on a front. And I just love how it plays out. And then your poster work for it is incredible.
Yeah, you have to thank Jim for all the designs because he worked on that short. I just got pulled in at the last minute for the title card.
Oh, okay. Well, the title card is wonderful. Do you have that hanging somewhere?
No, I should. If it's around, it's like, stuff just kind of gets lost on my desk. If it's pencil, most of my stuff was digital. I kept trying to move back to pencils so that I could have something physical. But it's just, I don't know. I just got so sucked into working digital for a while. It was especially when you're trying to do multiple poses, because then you can do alternate arms. You can get your static shots, and you don't have to do all these layers of arms and legs and breakdowns. You can just kind of give them your A, B, and C. Here's all sorts of different things, and give your holds. And I got to get back to paper though, because at the end of Porky Daffy, I wound up getting like carpal tunnel starting. So I'm been told, go back to paper, see if it fixes it. I'm like, okay.
Well, let's move back to Porky Daffy real quick. Not the movie, but the vignette, if you will. Magician Daffy with vintage Porkies, and you take us through a slew of Porkies throughout his career.
I, the great Daffy, will perform amazing feats of prestidigitation. Now for the magic words. Presteth, changeth, rearrangeth.
Huh? Cut that out. Stop that this instant. How many will be the warning? This has gone too far. Stop! You better put me back to normal right now.
Okay. Sheesh. Looks right to me.
Starting with obviously the one that is in the series, the retro Porky that you designed and Jim Soper designed, and like it's just phenomenal design work, and he is involuntary volunteered to be a part of this magician show, and Daffy presto changes him into his 1930s counterpart, where he is the chubby Porky and he is black and white again. And can you talk about like the different variations Porky was chosen for these, or did you have any say in that? Like, was it just like given to you of like, oh, we need this type of Porky or we need this type of Porky?
Yeah, that was already settled on in the
Okay.
boards. They knew exactly which ones they had on their mind. I don't know if all of them made it in. I could have sworn there were a couple that didn't show up.
Oh,
Um,
I-
I thought most of them were there, but I thought there was one or two that might not have shown up. I watched it so quick and it happened so fast, but those were all pretty much in the boards, and I thought that was a phenomenal gag.
it was.
Because you just couldn't beat that one, and it was so much fun trying to lay them out and match those styles in there to each one. It's like, oh my god! But I didn't know when we were doing the Magician Daffy that it was going to be broken up into snippets.
Okay.
That was, I think, what they gave. That was the first assignment they handed me, and I thought it was one short of Daffy messing with Porky.
Just endlessly.
I thought it was just 7 minutes of just horrible stuff. And then the first one came out, and I was like, it was one gag. I was like, what happened to all the rest of them? And they're like, oh, we're using them as fillers. Sometimes we just need a minute here and a minute there, and like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I was like, so that was interesting because the whole first few weeks were just beat up, dissected Porky. I was like, I can get into this. That's okay. That's the test. Okay. I was like, it felt like it was a test. Like they wanted to see what I could bring to the table on
Oh
those.
wow, that's so fascinating. So like you didn't even know how it was going to be presented. That's
No,
crazy.
they just give you a file, and they give you that one actually didn't. I don't believe that one actually had an animatic.
Mm.
That one was just the board panels. All the rest of them, most of the rest of them had animatics, as close as possible. But that one I don't remember having an animatic. That's why it threw me off later on when it aired.
Yeah.
So, but I think all the gags got shown.
There's missing gags out there. We need to write to Warner Brothers.
It's possible. Possible a couple of them didn't show up, but I lost track. I have to go through the whole folder to see because it's like, okay, I saw a few of them. I could have sworn there might have been one or two that just didn't go anywhere.
Well, for those listening that haven't seen it yet, I'm going to run down the Porkies that we did see in this, and they are all phenomenally drawn and rendered and vibrant and so cool to see. So it starts with that 1930s fat Porky. Then we had another 1930s Porky, but the schoolboy Porky.
I love that one.
So great, so classic. Then we have a long tide Porky, back to the chubby offset Porky. And that's the end for the black and white ones. And then we had the color Porky with like the schoolboy colored hat and top, and like he's ready to go to school. Classic 40s Porky. And then we had a Chuck Jones Porky from the 60s. So we jump an entire 2 decades into the 60s to get a vintage Chuck Jones Porky, which is the only Chuck Jones like real drawing that I saw in this. But I love seeing it in this style. And if you were to do an entire series like this, I would be enamored by that. Then we jump again to 2021 Space Jam Porky, a little bit of self promo by Warner Brothers, but also the lighting here changes too. And it's the 2D rendered classic Porky, but in that, ready to play basketball era. And then it ends with Daffy duplicating himself. And Porky disappears entirely. I just thought that was a really clever ending. And the entire short, I mean, it's a 1 minute gag, but it works so well, even though it goes by really quickly. I actually like stopped it as I was watching it going, oh, wow. That's so cool. Oh, wow. Look what they did here. So kudos to you.
I think they might have changed a little bit of the dialogue or not. I'm not sure because originally I thought he stuttered, which they kind of yanked. Nobody wants to deal with Porky stuttering a lot.
Oh, okay.
Overly. The original one, the first one, I think that's the super stutterer.
Yes. He stuttered a little bit, but yeah, Bob Bergen was doing his best angry pig impression the entire time.
You better put me back to normal right now.
Yeah, no, that was a really great vignette, as I call them, for the 1-minute fillers, and I really enjoyed that one the most, I think.
I believe that one was boarded by Mike Rocco.
Oh yeah.
So he did Witch Hazel as well. So yeah, he'll after a while you get to know all the board guys. Like, oh, all right, there's like I know who this is. It's like I could always automatically tell Mike's boards. He always had a real good flair for his stuff.
Mike Rocco,
like,
friend of the podcast, he's been on talking about Beaky Buzzard as well as Witch Hazel and his work, you know, these characters. And I really wish that there was like some kind of art book that was out there with your work in it. That way, like people can see the individual drawings and pencil sketches and graphics and everything that went into all the artistry. So you guys really did a phenomenal job.
I know there's so much art out there that I haven't seen. Is like I haven't seen all the Dan stuff or Jim's, or it's like there's just a ton of it. It's like okay. It was like I'd like to get a book as well, or at least copies. Can I get some just copies? There's like some of these. Like,
well, if there's an archive that I can get into, I'm going to volunteer myself to create this book because I love you guys' work. The last short I wanted to mention was Poolside Pest. This is with Elmer Fudd trying to relax at the pool, and Daffy Duck is the pool boy. So, you know, relaxation is out the window as soon as you see that duck-billed mallard come around.
Oh, what's wrong with this crummy chair? Cabana boy! Cabana boy! Cabana boy! Oh, where's that cabana boy?
Hello! Daffy Duck here. I'll be your cabana boy today. How can I help you?
How fun was it to just mess with Elmer Fudd? and what was your role in this short?
It's always fun to mess with Elmer. I didn't get too many Elmers. I think I got maybe only 2 to work with him.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just most of the shorts were already pre-planned out, and then it's just how much can you add to it. So yeah, I'm trying to think back on that one. That was one of the earlier ones too. I was like, so that was a lot of fun on certain ones where it gets all shriveled up. It's like that on some of those they had to rein me in, and it's like, okay, you got to pull out some of the lines. He's too shriveling. Like, okay, it's like, but yeah, on some of that is like that's why layers are good, because here's an extra set of layers of lines to make him even more wrinkly, and I'll just kind of take that layer away. Once in a while, you can throw out a gag that missed, or here's an extra pose. Maybe we can get an extra expression out of here. But for the most part, they're all timed out as well. So then you're kind of messing with a whole bunch of dominoes that can quickly go out of alignment.
Gotcha.
So it's just like that was a quick one. There were a couple that had a lot of layouts to do, and that one, I just did model sheets for Elmer's costume, just his little hat. Is like you got to figure that stuff out so everybody understands how it fits.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that one was pretty straightforward on that short.
Well, I love how, Daffy just, tries to get him water the entire time, and he's in front of a pool, and it can't happen. Like, he can't get the water to his mouth. And it is like the shriveled like lips the entire time. It was really great to see Elmer get his comeuppance, even though he was just trying to relax at the pool.
I know, it was so fun to draw, but then when I saw it on the screen, I'm like, that's really disturbing. I like it. It's even more disturbing in color.
Oh boy, this dry heat is a killer. A glass of cool water would be nice right now, but I don't want to call on that cabana boy. Oh, but I sure am thirsty. Oh, cabana boy! Cabana boy!
Yes, sir?
I'd like a glass of water.
1 glass of water coming right up.
As with all of these, the bloodshot eyes, the purple bruises, like all of it is really vibrant. All of it is in your face, but all of it is great. All of it is wonderful. So thank you. I had a question from one of my fans on Instagram. That's This Means Podcast over there. When you're doing layouts, do you have to redraw every board panel?
No. Um, Due to time constraints, they're selected. They're usually the directors go through it and realize this expression is going to give the animation crew a little bit of a hard time. So let's make sure we hit that one so that they're nice and clear and they don't have to think. It's like, here you go, just kind of move it around, which was very interesting when I saw the first short come back because, working in animation for years, you do boards and cleanup boards and layouts have gone the way of the dodo in most
Wow.
productions. So I've seen, gorgeous rendered boards go, and then it comes back from overseas, and it's like, what happened? So when these shorts started showing up, and you're looking at it going, you could freeze it and see the actual drawing that you handed them as a layout show up. I was like, wow, that was mind blowing.
I bet.
It was
Wow.
like, I can find the exact drawing. There it is. It's like, you can line it up and go, oh, they just put it in there and animated around it. It was like, that was just insane. Um, but yeah, it was mostly that you wanted to hit specific key poses and things that were going to go a little bit wonky, movement wise, or blurs or stretches, especially if they're beat up and then you don't want to give them any more room for interpretation than possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that rewarding to see your drawings up there like that? Or are you like,
Very.
okay,
That was super exciting.
nice.
Um, because most of the stuff, I've seen my stuff around for years working at Disney. It was a running joke every time we'd go to the park. Within 10 minutes, how many people can I see wearing a T-shirt with something I drew
Oh,
on it?
wow. That's cool.
So it was one of those, and usually, we're doing running tabs. Who saw one? I'm up to 20. I was like, this is weird. Um, you're standing next to a family and they're all wearing the same T-shirt with something I drew. It was really nice to just see exactly what you did show up. You take your name off after a while. You work on something, you do boards and you do layouts and designs, and then the show comes out and you're like, nah, I didn't work on that.
Okay.
It was like, it just kind of falls apart overseas. So they had a really good group of animation teams working on these shorts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the guys
I was amazed.
the guys over at Tonic DNA and,
Hmm.
Snapple and, there's so many wonderful studios out there that really, really brought their A games to this show. I wish we would see some of your drawings on Warner Brothers shirts and, these Looney Tune concept art pieces. I would love to walk around and see them, but, N
Which is it's weird though because I don't know, a year or two ago when I was working on Looney Tunes, that division called me up and said, "Do you want to do design work for product?"
Oh,
I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "Why not?" Filled out all the paperwork and then don't know what happened there.
bummer.
So I was like, "Oh," I was all in. I was just like, "All right." He's like, "Why not?" He's like, "Let's just. Why aren't you doing more on and really backing the shorts?"
Right.
It's like, you should just be running wild with this on product.
Yeah. Well, I'm sporting mine. I don't know if you can see this, but I have the
Yeah, I
characters,
see.
and I found this at Six Flags.
Oh, there we go.
But yeah, nowhere in LA. I think you might have answered this. When catching poses, do you ever have to reframe your work to a specific character, and which character causes the most revisions?
Hmm. I haven't had a character that needed a lot of revisions. It was usually the revisions would come because either the voice track, whatever they were saying, I misjudged like someone being concerned versus angry.
Oh,
It was usually that kind of thing of, oh, he's not supposed to be really angry in this one. He's just kind of like more shocked or concerned. So it's just lightening up on brows and that kind of stuff. Or I'd give him an alternate for what if we swap the hands in this pose? It would make it a little stronger. But yeah, there weren't too many. There usually weren't too many revisions. It was usually pretty light-handed on stuff. It was usually a misjudge, or the dialogue came out a little bit different. I didn't hear the track,
Gotcha.
so you're kind of guessing based on the board what it was looked like when you roughed it out, and sometimes just changing the model here and there. If you add an eyelid, sometimes the eyelid height can change the difference of what the expression looks like. It gets nuanced like that. But yeah, most of the stuff I don't mind. I've spent years at Disney dealing with other artists' stick figure drawings that I could. That's what they handed me, and it was just like, make something of it. And it was like, oh, all right. It's like, so. It was like, getting boards. Sometimes you get boards that are really crisp and clean, and I was like, there's an energy here I need to keep and translate, and just kind of tweak it a little bit and push it just a little bit more, but keep that energy without killing it. And then there are others that it's kind of like, okay, this really needs to go to town. This was like a quick drawing they threw out, and it's like, let's give it a really good one. So it depends on how much time the board guys had, because they were just going and going and going.
Wow.
So most of them were happy. You didn't really get a chance to talk to them all because most of the board guys were gone too. So that's the one thing I missed, is I would have loved to have all been in rooms together with people, so you could go, look what we can do with this, and just kind of shoot the breeze right there in the room, and run ideas off each other.
Because this was happening at the pinnacle of the
COVID. Yeah.
That's a bummer. That's such a loss, I think. Collaboration is so important, especially in a medium like animation, and working with these characters. And, in the 40s, they were all working together, and like they were showing each other what they were doing. And yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the beast, I guess. But what a time for that to have happened. Very unfortunate. This next question is one of my favorites. So you mentioned on Twitter that, and I highly recommend everyone go follow you on Twitter, and we'll get to your socials at the end. But what is your favorite hidden reference inside your work with Looney Tunes cartoons? And you mentioned that there's a Tom and Jerry fish in your Oregon Fail short with Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny. Do you have any others that fans should be on the lookout for?
That was probably one of the biggest ones that I did, and Alex caught it right away. He's like, as soon as I turned it in, he was like, Tom and Jerry. I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. It's like, I that was the one that was like, with the rough board had enough information on it. I was like, I know where I want to go with this one. I needed to kind of slip that one in there.
Gotcha. Cool.
No, there's not a lot of. I don't usually do a lot of hidden stuff. There's one panel that means a lot to me, but it won't mean a lot to anybody else, and it's from the Three Bears.
Oh,
because the mom and Pop Bear are pretty much my grandparents.
Nice.
So he's sitting there in the chair, slouched in a specific spot, and it's actually based off of a photo of my grandfather.
Aww.
So that one, as soon as you see it, and she's like leaning in, it's like they look like my grandparents' bears. So it's really strange. So I sent that to my sister. She was like, "Oh my god!"
Aww.
But it's like nobody else would know it. I even sent her a picture of the actual picture I based it off of. She was like, "Okay." But yeah, I don't usually hide stuff in drawings or slip other stuff in.
You're telling me there's no hidden Mickey in Looney Tunes? You slipped in there? I'm just kidding. You better not have done that.
Not on purpose. I don't think so.
I love that you brought in a familiar aspect with the Three Bears, because I think a lot of people see those characters as.
Oh wait, I think one of the mice in the one Sylvester cartoon, I think, is wearing Mickey shorts.
Oh,
I put Mickey shorts on the rat, on the huge rat.
Oh, which is a reference to Duck Tracy.
Yes, the Great Piggy Bank robbery. Yeah, I think I put Mickey shorts on the rat.
Now that I think about it, I think you did.
I don't know if they colored him red though. I have to look at it again.
But I do remember the suspenders and like the big buttons on top. So good job. You snuck that one by. So now I want to talk about the posters. So you've done numerous posters for this series, starting way back in 2021.
Yeah, it was weird, hit or miss when they call up and say, "Hey, we got something for you. What do you want?" And you don't know how it's going to be used, and then you realize it's the HBO tile.
Right. Did you
Um,
do the Yosemite Sam fish hook with bugs on it?
that one, yes.
That one, okay.
That one I did, yeah.
So were you given, because those images are void of anything in the short, like they are completely
Yes.
separate. So were you given free reign of like, oh, I want to see this character and posed with this character in this way? Or how does that come down?
They usually gave me a quick rough to base it off of, and then I'd play with it
Oh,
and
okay.
and see, like on that one, um, like Bugs was just waving at him, so it was like I did the fish gag on it. I had another version on it. I had multiple versions on that one. I had him in full scuba gear, and then I had him with just the goggles. But he originally had like the scuba tank and the whole
Oh,
thing
wow.
going. And then I also had a rough that they didn't get, which was him dressed as the mermaid on the hook.
Oh, what?
But that was steering so far away, and I'd already had the main one roughed out. And then I did alternates of him waving, and then I gave him the little tiny fish to wave in front of him, and they took that one. But that was just an add-on gag. That was kind of like, let's give him something else to do besides just waving at him. Because I was so used to drawing Mickey waving at everybody. I'm like, I don't like characters waving.
You like characters slapping each other.
Yeah.
That's more up your
And with
alley.
the fish, it's like something, It's like, you gotta do something. It's like, so, yeah, most of them have usually had a quick rough handed off. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, there was a rough for the Tasmanian one, the Tasmanian devil,
Oh, and breaking out of the Acme
out of the
box.
crate.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the one and only Tasmanian devil drawing I did.
Oh, wow.
That was it. That's the only time I got to draw him.
Well, how fun was that?
A lot of fun. That one was piecemeal together. It was half pencil, half digital.
Oh, okay.
So I did part of it in a pencil, and then I kind of composite it and had alternates. It had alternates of Bugs positions on the back, and I think an alternate of Taz. And then digitally, I put them all together and then added all of the breakage splinters flying all over the place. So, yeah, that one only really exists in digital again in its final form. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That one's glorious. If I could have a poster of that behind me, I would.
I know. I always
I'll
wondered
take
if
the-
they never made any posters for like bus stops and stuff. Yeah, I was like, that would be fun to see some of those advertised. But I thought maybe they would use that.
Absolutely. I don't know why they didn't. There's Max posters everywhere around town.
My favorite though is still the bugs on the pumpkin.
Oh, yes. Yes, for
That's
the
still
Hollow Scream.
that's still my favorite drawing. And I did two of those because the original one I had his mouth closed and he was a little bit more Bob McKimpson
Okay.
in the face. And then we opened his mouth and they wanted like, let's open his mouth. And they gave me a couple, shifted an ear, and I didn't want to mess up that drawing. So I did a completely different one. And that's the one they used. But yeah, the original one's more McKimpson.
Fantastic.
And the second one is, I guess, more me. I don't know.
And lastly, is there a short that people should go back and rewatch to look for just artistry or your approach to a character or a piece of animation?
I don't ever refer anybody to my stuff. I refer people to the golden stuff.
Oh, that's fine.
So if you're gonna
What is your favorite Looney Tunes short? We'll throw it out there. We'll make it broad.
Oh, there's so many, but I love Falling Hair.
Oh, so great.
Yeah, Elmer's Candid Camera.
That's a rare one.
That one.
Early Chuck Jones.
That one. Yeah, that one's good. Yeah, there's so many Chuck Jones. I prefer the earlier Chuck Jones cartoons, where Bugs is short and stocky like Super Rabbit.
Yeah.
And earlier, I get away from I love his style and where he morphed to, but my preference is early mid 40s for Chuck Jones.
It sounds like you were the right guy to go to for this project.
And and it's weird because my Bugses you can I think really stand out in the shorts because they vary. On the other scenes they kind of try to revert back to the standard model pack.
Okay.
And then on mine the proportions change a little bit. So those are the ones I can easily see my stuff quicker because my Bugs does not match anybody else's as far as I can tell. And I was like, and that's just the way it came out. I wasn't trying to do anything special, or that's just the way it flowed.
Well, it's good to be unique.
Like, okay,
it's good to have your own stamp of approval on your own work. So I like that.
We'll see if I like it in 5 years.
Well, I will still like it in 5 years. So kudos. Robert, this has been a delight. Where can people find you online?
I don't usually do Facebook. I do have a page there, but best bet is usually Instagram or Twitter, X, whichever one you want to call it now.
At Robert Griggs Art, right?
Robert Griggs Art is Instagram. I think I'm labeled Dr. Griggs on Twitter.
That's right.
Because that's what Bob calls me, and we call each other doctor because we treat each other like surgeons with a pencil.
I love that.
So that's kind of where that came from.
That's great. And I highly recommend you follow this man. He posts a lot of the behind the scenes work on all of the shorts he worked on, as well as all his other projects. And you can follow the podcast over at This Means Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, or OFC This Means Pod on X, formerly Twitter. What a weird thing. What a weird time we live in.
Yes.
So thank you again, Robert, for joining me in this conversation. And as always, that's not all, folks. Stay tuned because we have a lot more coverage coming your way.
Oregon ho! Hey, what gives?
Is it all right if I take 5?
Only if you're okay missing out on the best available land.
I made it!
Wow, talk about lush. I could get used to living here.
Oh, no you don't. This pristine land is mine. First come, first